Thank you to our sponsors for today's video, Amber and StarCharge. Amber offers a modern extended warranty for your Tesla's battery and more without the burden of long-term contracts or upfront payments. Check out the link in the description below to browse their plan options and get started with a free over-the-air diagnostic check. This video is also brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world. And they are also a provider of residential or commercial battery storage and microgrid solutions.
Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me in beautiful, sunny California here at the green, the lawn, the putting area of Pebble Beach Golf Course. Pretty amazing. We're actually on the concept lawn right now, which has some crazy cars that are coming in to be featured and showcased to the public, many of whom will be seeing these for the first time. In this video, I have the cool opportunity to present to you the Lucid Gravity, not for the first time, but actually the second time. We went on a full tour when this car was unveiled at the LA Auto Show, but it was a bit hectic and everything was going on. And honestly, the program has evolved and moved on, and they're making progress towards a start of series production by the end of this year, and first deliveries coming very soon. So I wanted to get together with two of my favorite people at Lucid, Eric Bach, who is really the mastermind behind the technology on this vehicle, and also Derek Jenkins, who's responsible for the design and shape and materials, and also the overall vibe and feel of the car. We are going to have a long video, lots of discussions, lots of questions about Gravity, where it falls in the marketplace, some of the ideology behind it, where the project is in terms of nearing completion. So join me as we go basically not on a tour, but a podcast style video here in the concept lawn of Pebble Beach of the new Lucid Gravity. Guys, we are back with Derek, who basically leads design for Lucid, and you've done some incredible stuff. Sapphire looks amazing. We can talk a little bit about that, but welcome back to the channel.
Thanks, man. Great to see you.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is the first time, we were just discussing this, the first time I ever rode in a Lucid was with you driving, or was I don't think you were driving.
We weren't allowing anybody to drive at that point. Yeah, that was me at Amelia Island.
Yeah,
right?
that was, what, 4 years ago, something like that?
It must have been like 2020, 21? Around that time.
There.
It was
pre-series
definitely pre-series, pre-production cars, yeah.
So we've gone through Air. I think everyone's seen Air. There's been some changes to Air as well, style packages, blacked out things.
That's right, yeah. We've evolved Air through kind of the standard trim, through the stealth trim, and then if we've got Pure on the market. So there's been a range of different trims, but basically it's the same car with lots of software updates and minor refinements and improvements along the way.
Yeah, heat pump and some other nerdy stuff that I can geek out about.
The things that Lucid really, pushes for to make the best possible EV available. Yeah.
The Sapphire is insane. Just in terms of its figures on paper and everything, but also just those minor design tweaks that give this car this muscular approach. That thing, I mean, it looks like it has over 1,000 horsepower when you look at it.
Yes.
And that is honestly a pretty big departure from the standard car, which is luxurious, elegant. What changes did you do to Sapphire to just make it insane?
It's funny because, from the beginning, we wanted the car to be elegant, and we wanted it to have a sporty presence, but it was more about elegance and looking elevated, But all along, we knew there was going to be like a super sport version of it. My personal taste is a car that's a little bit more sinister and stealth. And so when the Sapphire project evolved, it was the opportunity to do a dark color with lots of depth to it. Obviously the stealth trim, and then when you get to plus the wheels out, plus the fenders out, drop the suspension, really stance the car, I think that just accentuates the already kind of sleek aspect of the car. So I'm super proud of that product. I mean, I think all of us are here.
It's amazing that a few changes the entire character of the car. So I, of course, am a huge fan of that. And that brings us now to the big thing for Lucid. In my opinion, this is, my words, sort of the make or break of the future. This car needs to be huge for Lucid. And I think even before the engineering talks and the chassis stuff and the battery stuff that we'll talk to Ahmad and Peter and everyone else about, and Eric, this design, the attractiveness, where people can envision themselves in a car, this is the most important to a buying decision.
Yes.
When did you even start conceptualizing an SUV?
Quite honestly, the SUV discussion, conceptually, has been around since, I don't know, 2016, the discussion. So what that means for design group is that we had been studying ideas. As we evolved Air, we built our design DNA, and in essence, the DNA of our products. You know, we had to think not only about just Air, we had to think, well, how does this make its way onto an SUV? So there were early studies as far back as 16, and that just evolved. And then after Air was completed, then we could really dive into that and get focused on it. And that became the primary focus for the design team once Air was in its final state.
You know, just looking at this from the outside in, for our viewers who haven't checked it out, we were at the unveiling of this car and have a full tour roughly of it. And I think it may have been this car.
Yes.
But we didn't get to chat with you there.
Right.
And so this has a lot of Lucid Air in it.
Yeah.
But it's really its own character, and I would
right.
say almost an evolved vision. To me, this is really an attractive car. Not to say the regular Air isn't, but this, whatever's going on here is really cool.
Oh, I appreciate it.
So what is going on?
Yeah.
Can you walk us through?
Yeah,
Because it's got a pretty short nose.
That's right.
Which is
That's
pretty
right.
distinctive.
Yeah. I mean, I'll set it up by saying this. I've always felt like the 3-row SUV is an underserved category. Even though there's options out there, I've had 2 grown kids, and I like to go surfing and bikes and gear.
Yep.
And it always seems like this compromise between having tons of space and an enormous, inefficient, hard to drive vehicle.
And a box. Yeah.
Or a really fun, sporty, compact vehicle with no utility and functional reward. And trying to find that balance is really how we came at this. You throw electrification at it, and there's even less options, so it's an opportunity to do even more. I think with this car, like with Air, it had to have a nice sibling relationship. We wanted it to be brand relevant, but it ultimately comes down to optimizing for efficiency in both space and aerodynamics, but giving it the tough SUV face, really to kind of evoke that emotional thing that's so important, I think, for consumers in this space. So we have this kind of tall, I like to think of it kind of a freight train type vibe at the front of the car, bullet train, you know, very upright.
Well, you have a super smooth surface.
Very
Air
smooth.
management also kind of like working around through
That's
here.
right.
It's pretty neat.
We're doing all of our aero management that we evolved from Air. We keep our light blade signature, just make it a lot more prominent. Keep the functionality to the front to even a higher level.
Was this a tough decision because you're putting a body shut line here?
It was.
But it's very practical to have a low loading height.
That's right. I less shut lines the better in my view.
Sure.
But in this case, form and function are vital.
Yeah.
And this car is about space. Access to that space is critical, right?
So you didn't want to have like a top opening hood here, which then you have to go up.
Because then you're lifting over the blade like you do with Air at a higher level.
Sure.
So the likelihood to damage the trim. This also has the great feature of being able to sit in the front, which I think is comes directly as a mandate directly from Peter.
Okay.
And he's
Gotta be able to tailgate out the
there
front trunk.
literally before we left the studio to come down here. We were working on the front accessories together.
Oh, cool.
But you know, the car has that really bold, strong SUV presence from the front, yet this really sleek cabin, chopped off at the back for aero and for utility, good headroom at the back. And we get everything into a relatively compact footprint, you know?
Well, I want to ask you about that. So Colton, if you come around this side, we hear from automakers all the time when we're reviewing a car or whatever, that this sloping SUV thing.
Yes.
Personally, I hate it. I don't know why. I don't like a coupified SUV. I want a box. I got big dogs. I want to put stuff in here.
That's right, yeah.
How were you able to, as a brand so focused on efficiency, or is there not really an aero benefit? This looks like a box, like very utilitarian.
Yeah.
But then also Lucid, I know it's going to be efficient. So what is that trade-off in design?
So, you know, some of this is like connecting the dots. You know what amount of headroom and package space you want in front row, second row, and third row, and those are vital, you know, so we really needed to protect that in the third row. At the same time, you can see the peak of the cabins farther forward. It's up here. Okay. And then there's a lot of it, what we call acceleration. That means it's a progressive curve that's diving down to this point, which is good for aerodynamics. That keeps the flow stuck on the car till the very end. We pull this you know, the debate about the length of the spoiler was a big one. It's a big, long spoiler.
I mean, I think it looks cool.
But it's super effective. Trust me when I say it's super effective.
So this was really an
All of this
important
treatment.
point.
Absolutely, because we could have accelerated the glass up here and had a spoiler here and maintained the headroom just as it is.
Sure.
But to get this down another couple of inches is literally multiple counts in drag coefficient, which translates directly to range. So
drag coefficient, of course, is nothing without frontal area.
That's right.
And so does it bother you when automakers are like, we have a 0.2 whatever coefficient of drag? Does that mean something from a design perspective? Because to me, it's always that times frontal area, just a general question.
I mean, in general, if you're making a large, high-profile, boxy vehicle that's going to have a large frontal area, it's probably not going to have the greatest coefficient of drag.
Okay.
This is still a reasonably wide vehicle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 meters wide. That's right up there with the big dogs. But we're obviously low, and we have the ability to bring the car lower to the ground, which doesn't change the frontal area. It just helps with flow.
Yeah.
But the combination of course, is all you truly care about, because that's your total resistance in the air. You know, so keeping the profile of the car lean is very important.
So there's a lot of competition in this space. This is a heated all the way from, let's say, Kia EV9 on the low end to Rivian, and even some crazy, especially SUVs coming out of China, Lotus Electra,
That's right.
things that.
Yeah.
Where does this fit into from a design perspective? It had to be different. It is not, there is nothing like this out there, which is cool.
Yes.
But was that a consideration?
Certainly. I mean, we knew we weren't going to go for the rugged boxy thing, and I think Rivian does that really, really well. That's just not our space, and it doesn't fit with our ethos. That doesn't mean we don't have off-road capability. We do, and we will. But for us, it was sticking to the mantra of kind of space for people in gear, awesome performance both on and off road. Got to have that efficiency, man. It's not a Lucid without efficiency, and we continue to carry that torch for the industry, and being able to achieve their range. You put all that together with the kind of luxury experience inside, with our materials, our finishes, our thoughtfulness, our display layout. We have a whole new UX 2.0 coming out with this car. It's going to be a big step forward in bringing all of our lessons learned along the road of improvements. And
I have a demo of that on this channel when this car launches. It was an early version, of course, but you guys can go back and check that out, because even if you come in and look inside, just peek through this window, Colton, I mean, the interior is gorgeous. There's so much room. My friend Alex, who's 6'7", sat in the back with Peter in the third row, totally fine.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we did our very best to give you something sleek and sporty and you know, bold enough to be an SUV, but that could also have that utility, that comfort, that space that people expect. I mean, in many cases, and through talking to customers, we realize in many cases these types of products are the primary household vehicle. So people expect it to do it all, and ideally they want that with very little compromise, none if they can have it.
I mean, in this category, you're dealing with top clients that have high expectations, with experience from existing automakers coming out of some of the most refined vehicles. You can't mess this one up. It's got to be so legit.
Yeah, and it has to be able to do well around town, do well at the Costco parking lot, fit in your garage. And it also has to be great for journeys, long journeys, and that means range. Range, and of course the ability to fast charge. And I think you know, we're confident this is going to be at the very top of the range capability. It will be at the very top of the efficiency spectrum in this category, no question about that. And the fact that you can get all your gear in it at the same time, I think I just feel that's what counts for this category. You know, if you need to go do more off-roading or do big towing, maybe those are other products.
Sure, that's when you just you know, you're into a different sort of thing. But this can still tow. This will still go on the dirt road.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do all that stuff.
It's the all-round things that life's journey throws at you.
Yeah, it's the one car to do it all.
Exactly.
The one car solution.
And not compromise.
Yeah.
Truly not compromise.
So I think a lot of people, including myself, are very curious about the project of Gravity. We've heard about it. We were just discussing too. I think our audience is getting excited. I'm starting to see people comment on, I'll make a Rivian R1S video. They're like, oh, but what about Gravity? This is all really, the hype is building. What's left from a design perspective? Is the design locked, nothing to change? Are there textures and things that are still being dialed
Yeah, I
in?
mean, it's really minor stuff. Those are we're at a stage now as we go through the final material testing, durability testing. There's always these refinements that have to take place to make sure we're giving the customer a superior product that is ready for prime time. And so we're at that phase now. Of course, we're looking at how we mature this. A lot of work on accessories right now because they come later in the program. So that's the storage accessories for the front. It's the nets. It's the fold-out seat. It's those types of things. Of course, cargo features for the rear, all-weather mats, roof racks. All of the things that kind of go along with that journey of usability.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I cannot wait to drive it. Cannot wait to see them out on the roads. One last question for you that just came to mind where we end this portion is, will Lucid do mid-cycle refreshes, or are they just rolling changes as model years go on?
I think it's fair to say both.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we continue to refine the product where we can get in there and do a quick win for our customers. So we continue to do that. We continue to look at where we're going to bring colors into the vehicle. Colors like this you could probably see in the not too distant future on air.
Color.
Yeah, Aurora green is I love greens.
Yeah.
This is really a green gray.
Yeah.
It's elegant. It's sporty. Look at how well it looks in this environment. So we're looking at how to continue to expand that color and trim options for air. And then of course you're going to see new wheels. You're going to see perhaps bigger changes in the future.
Cool. Well, it wouldn't be Lucid without evolving.
That's right.
So that would be cool.
Never
And
stop.
I can't thank you enough for taking this much time.
Man.
It was
It's always a
amazing, Derek.
pleasure talking with you.
Always fun. I mean, I learned so much about design from you because I'm like, oh, efficiency, batteries, and we'll talk to Eric in a bit.
Yeah.
But you know, to figure out what mind headspace you're in when creating this car helps us.
One last point I'll leave you with, doing great design is also about having real parameters, right? What is it you want this product to achieve form and function wise? And if you're really true to those things and you go after them, the aesthetic, if you're good at it, the aesthetic will fall in line, you know. And I think that's what I love about working at Lucid, because you're taking on meaningful challenges to make the best product possible for the customer, and then from the design standpoint, you bring in the artisanship to hopefully make it all look amazing and work amazing. Yeah.
Well, all sounds good to me. Again, thank you for joining again. So much Lucid stuff to come in the future as well. I'm sure we'll have you back on when we see the final series production one. I mean, this one still has, I can tell there's like no orange side marker, and there's little things left to do to homologate the car. So
my least favorite.
Yeah, of course. But we'll have to chat again in the near future. And
we'll show up. I promise.
Thank you enough, seriously, for joining. That was great.
Kyle.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Great pleasure to be joined by Eric Bach, who is really the brains, can I say, a lot of the technical aspects behind this car, and of course a team as well. But a lot of the magic on how Lucid performs is because of this guy right here. So welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, this is exciting. We've discussed air many times. There's improvements coming. There's now bi-directional, like charging another car through a cable.
Isn't that cool?
I can't wait to play around with it. I'm picking one up tomorrow with that cable.
Awesome. I have it in my Sapphire.
Amazing. Great. So I think I want to talk Gravity, because we've been at the unveil of this car, and it was very surface level at that time, some major statistics and things, but the project has been moving on. In your impression, how is it going? Is it, obviously it's never smooth to bring a car to market, but you've done this now. What is your impression of the project?
Well, it's always as smooth as it can be. Approaching launch later this year, there are always a couple things that require special attention. But overall, it's been great to see how things come together. We actually think it's coming together better than it was with Air, because on Air, if you remember when we got the funding for Air in 2018, we were about 120 people in the entire company.
Right, building a crazy car too. It's insane.
Leaving about 70 engineers between hardware and software and powertrain and everything. And then we had to hire the people while we were designing the car, so it was a mad rush, a mad race. And I think it's still a world-class car, but this was a little bit easier because we just had a bigger bench. So saying we are going to launch end of this year with confidence, the car is coming together. I've driven it many times on racetracks or roads. It's super competent, as it stands right now, we are in the pre-production series already. Peter shared that already.
Yes, I saw that. Yep.
We just recently had a customer event where we had one of the prototypes there that are being used for validation, causing a little of a turmoil because of 2 charge ports.
Yeah, what was up with that? 2 charge ports?
Well, you know, when you're making a validation car, you want to validate as much as possible.
Yeah.
So you fit it out maybe with more than the production car will actually have.
Okay.
Maybe that helps think through a logical consequence of that.
Yeah.
There was a charge port on the rear left, right?
Yeah.
And one on the front left. So obviously we are a global company. We have Europe, where there's CCS2. In the US, we've got CCS1 now. There is the transition to NACS, and we are obviously signed up with Tesla for that.
Yeah, and your impression of how that's going with J3400, is this going to be an easy implementation into the cars? Because of course you're at much higher voltage than superchargers, and I know this isn't you talking, it's me talking. Tesla needs high voltage charging stations. What's going on?
Yes,
it's crazy that, you know, we have version 4 dispensers, but no chargers years after this. They can't even charge. Okay, I won't go on all day long about it, but you know, their Cybertruck's 800 volts and that has to go in a split pack to charge. You're very high voltage, which has a lot of benefits. Of course, you're up to 926.
924 volts.
924, two off.
22 modules times 42 volts max. So
I love it.
924.
Great. So you have to use the Wonderbox, the booster, which is really your baby. But the Wonderbox,
one of the babies.
it was designed in a time period when there was never a thought that you would need to boost more than 50 kilowatts. Because at the time, the maximum charger that was limited to 500 volts would have been a 50 kilowatt, 125 amp charger.
Exactly.
And then Tesla opened up the network without the support for cars that were advanced, in my impression. I know it's not your words, mine. So how will you handle this into the future, do you think?
Yeah, so as you already mentioned, we are very hopeful that Tesla will make true on their promise to have the V4 going up to 1000 volts, because that is just the smarter charging voltage.
Absolutely.
You can lower the amperage, which helps with I2R losses, and we all don't want to lose electrons while charging, but only while driving, right?
Yes, of course.
So the higher the voltage, the lower the current, the less hot everything gets, the less copper you need to transport inside the car, right? If you're at 400 volts, you need about twice the amount
And
of
thick
copper
bus bars
just
and
to get
everything
into
else.
the battery.
Yeah.
So the Wunderbox was designed as I'd say flat tire kit or something like that. There were a couple CCS1 50 kilowatt chargers out there, and we thought it's good to be backwards compatible, where everything is on 1000 volt in the future.
Yeah.
And now, of course, we have the challenge of having to go back with a V3 charging network from Tesla back to the 400 volt era. And of course, the Wunderbox can do that, but 50 kilowatts may not be the most exciting if you really want to make it your primary charging destination.
Sure.
So we may have other concepts how you can achieve much higher powers, because it's really important to give the customer freedom of choice and then an awesome charging experience.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just felt that you guys got a lot of flack initially for charging at 50 kilowatts, when I was like, wait, when Eric made this thing, and like this was never a concept. You would never have to do more. And of course that would add weight and cost on the vehicle for no reason.
Exactly.
And now we're in this situation. So I just had to say this in the video. I didn't know we were going to talk much about it, but Gravity. This is the big one. To me, this is the make or break. I mean, this really has to be an amazing car for so many people. I'm particularly excited about this one. You know, having the ability to go long distance with your family, with your pets is, you know, Lucid has amazing range. And now if this can translate into a bigger vehicle, it could be cool. What roughly is different from the Air? Because you probably are harvesting a lot of components and sharing them.
Yeah, absolutely. We are trying to harvest as many components as possible. Maybe the most prominent one is our battery module, right? I think you saw our battery module, the one-shot battery module that we then put 300 cells in, close it up, and it's part of the modular battery pack. It's also enhancing the stiffness and the vehicle dynamics on Air as well as on Gravity. In terms of topology, we've shuffled inside the battery pack, where we had the second story of battery modules in Air behind or underneath the rear seat, underneath the
Yeah,
rear
your
seat,
butt, yep,
actually. We moved that underneath the front seat because we want
so it's double stacked up here.
double stacked underneath the front seats,
Okay.
and single stack in the back, so that we've got a flat pack in the back. And we've got the space because we lifted the H30 in the first row, so
Yep.
the hip to heel dimension up a little bit because you want a little bit more of a command position.
Sure.
So there was just enough space to squeeze the batteries in there.
Okay. And how many kilowatt hours roughly? Is it the same 118 plus or minus, or?
So, as you know, cell generations are typically between like 3 and 6 years from chemistry to chemistry or version to version. And we've been cycling through different versions already. For instance, the Air Pure has a Panasonic cell, we've revealed that, and it's a completely different cell than the LG cell or the Samsung cell that we were using before. So Gravity is going to be on another cell again.
Okay.
And that has a little bit more amp hours per cell, which means we go over the 112 that we had in the GT on the 22 module pack.
Yep.
So it's right around 120-ish kilowatt hours.
Great. But with the same number of cells in weight, that would be equivalent.
Same number of cells, same amount of weight. It's about 70, 71 grams per cell each, times 6,600 on the big pack. So the cells are kind of carryover from a form factor perspective, and then the module is an entire carryover of all the hardware. We are constantly optimizing the electronics and the pricing of the componentry. Maybe it's really important to understand that we didn't just lift the Air up a little bit, but we made a complete new platform so that it really becomes a usable SUV. So it was really
this is an important point.
Very important to differentiate, because you don't get this like level of ride height if you jack up a car, right? Otherwise, the subframes would have stayed down, or the droop angles of your drive shafts would have become too crazy to manage, as well as then the steering system would have been.
So there's a lot that's different, even from a complete architecture.
Yeah, all subframes are new, right? The castings, the main hard points of the chassis and suspension are all new. Steering geometry. Then you already mentioned
still double wishbone in this one?
Yes, double wishbone, virtual steer axis, still going straight through the contact patch. That gives you the torque steerless steering.
And it's like a virtual ball access, basically. It's really cool. So you get this insane feeling, and then you can, through geometry, like change how you want the car from the setup.
Super natural. As I said, I've tracked it already. And I mean, it's so much fun. It always instantly gives me smiles on
an SUV, which is crazy. And Thunderhill's pretty cool because you get some nice elevation as well.
And we've actually, obviously, compared to the competition, whether it was from southern Germany, a little bit more sports-oriented, or southern Germany, more luxury-oriented. And I mean, well, I'm biased, obviously, but I really love how this car drives, handles, and accelerates. It's kind of unbeatable, I'd say, but you'll find out for yourself.
We will. We'll test it. We'll do all the things. I mean, from a thermal standpoint, obviously you're a performance guy. You drive a Sapphire, which is one of the most insane cars. Thermal management of like drivetrain and stuff, it was always great in the older cars. It got better with GTP, and now Sapphire here is insane. Not that I expect many people to really rip on these things. I know we will. I'll do a track day in one, but it's pretty set up to just really send it if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we learned a lot through our Formula E battery technology from the second generation on the battery pack and battery cell thermal management. And then we transitioned into optimizing the thermal resilience of our drive units through the multiple stages from our Dream Edition. That was pretty awesome. But now with Sapphire, we've optimized that even more. You will never thermally derate the drive units, for instance. And that technology has made it back into the Air Pure, our entry-level car. It's slight optimizations in the electromagnetic motor setup, in the software. Actually, we can OTA a range improvement via software, which is really, really cool to see. And Gravity will inherit all those good DNA from what we've developed so far. So it's very thermally resilient. It's got crazy power, crazy acceleration, and it's just fun to drive.
There's two trends in the automotive space that I would like to get your opinions on, which is the first is higher voltage for the low voltage system. You talk a lot about going as high voltage as realistically possible for the high voltage systems. What is your impression of going away from 12 volt?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about reinventing the 48 volt system and so on. So we've looked at all the components that we need inside the car and the trade-offs or benefits of going to 48 volts. We don't necessarily see that. There are a couple active chassis systems where you'd want a higher voltage system.
For more power
Or things like the
applications,
compressor.
Yeah.
But on the compressor, we're on 400 volts already.
Sure.
So why 48? 400 volts is even better.
Yeah.
Right, for high voltage heater, high voltage compressor, we're at a 10 times or 9 times the voltage already. So LEDs are about 5 volts.
Sure.
Right, so you actually have to downstep already from a 12 volt system for all the LEDs. The electronics ECUs are also downstepped at 5 volts. So how many systems can actually benefit from the 48 versus how many have a downside from it?
Yeah.
We found that for us the 12 volt is the better choice.
But maybe in the future there will be more supply base, more things available. This could be something to move into. I don't know, but
Maybe in the
see it,
future,
yeah.
right? But as said, if you've got a 48 volt a main bus, and then you need to step down 80% of your systems to 5 volts or 3 volts.
Yeah,
even,
then you have so many losses
then
doing
you
this.
lose on that one more than you gain on the 1 or 2 systems otherwise. So maybe some of the other 48 volt components could go to 400 volts.
Yeah, okay,
And then-
I like it.
So
Yeah.
we are just completely open. We look at it from a physics and electrical engineering perspective. Right now we think we've got a very efficient and also cost efficient choice.
Yeah, which is important. The final thing that we're starting to see a trend towards, and I know you guys subscribe to this as well, is especially remember when like 3 generations ago, 7 Series, talking Bengal era, it was how many ECUs could you have in your car? It's like I had 40 ECUs in this thing, and we've got laser wires running everywhere, all this stuff. We're seeing this real consolidation when it comes to control units. Some are even going into a zonal architecture type situation. Was that a factor into this car at all?
Yes, mainly we've upgraded the air architecture, which has a fully redundant 12 volt power supply architecture with 3 power sources, 2 ASIL B rails that then up-compose to an ASIL level D, which is kind of the standard that you need for redundancy and a true full self-driving if you want to follow good automotive practices. And then it also has a fully redundant information architecture. So all the signals also are redundantly handled via a high bandwidth Ethernet ring on 4 gateway controllers around the car. So it's super modern, it's super resilient already. And we've essentially taken that architecture, we've redone the ECUs to the next generation. There are newer processors, right? The processor price always comes down, and then you adapt your ECUs to it. We may have combined a couple of the external peripheral controllers into the controllers to, you could say, declutter or optimize the system, but it's not a one main controller that does everything via wires, and you only have dumb actuators on the outside. So it's a mix, essentially.
Yeah, makes sense. From our viewership standpoint, my final question for you is, this is going to be a very popular vehicle, I suspect, I hope. I know a lot of our viewers are probably going to buy one. What should they know? Because this is the nerd audience. What is the real focus from your perspective? What are you pushing the team to do that can leave them with an impression of what to expect?
Right. Essentially, we're going to carry over all the good DNA that we have with Lucid. That's always going to be an incredible space concept. I'll get to that in a second. Always going to be fun at driving or performance driving experience, as well as super efficient and therefore really usable on road trips car. Now, when we set out to make Gravity, it also started with an ulterior motive for me, ridding myself of other standard OEM products with 3 rows, because I've got 4 kids, as you know.
Sure.
And it was always a hassle going on a road trip without a rooftop box. So we always need a roof box, because we could never put enough luggage in the car when we had the whole family in the car. And that's a game changer with Gravity. It was super important for me and Peter to maximize the usable space. And you've heard that on air, and you're hearing it again because this car here has almost as much space as a Chevy Suburban
Yep.
or a Cadillac Escalade,
Yeah.
whilst it's a little bit shorter
Yeah.
than a 27 millimeters shorter than an Audi Q7, which is the one that has been bugging me from a luggage perspective.
Sure.
I'm not sure whether you've got some video or B-roll from the trunk.
Yes, we
right?
do, yes,
When
yeah.
when you fold the seats up, you get a
Yeah.
full extra luggage compartment
Like a
underneath.
huge deep well under there.
Really deep.
Yeah.
You can actually put a full check-in suitcase into there, plus additional roller bags and duffel bags, anything, and you've got the front trunk on top. So this now becomes really usable for family road trips with no extra gadgets that prevent you from going into parking structures, for instance, because your car gets too tall.
Yeah, of course.
Right, so
Yeah.
that was always the limitation for me. So I said we really need to maximize the usable space. And it's not just the luggage, but if you measure from the first row to the second row to the third row, hip to hip, or from accelerator pedal to the hip point, this has essentially the longest leg room in all 3 rows compared to its entire competition.
Wow.
And that means every single row can take a 98th percentile adult, so you can drive with 7 adults plus their luggage, if you ever need to do that. Need to be good friends with them.
Yeah, exactly.
For long road trips.
Yeah.
So it's really a space maximizer, and it's super pleasurable to drive. It's got a super supple, smooth mode, and then it gets really competent on mountain roads and Swift,
amazing.
or then you go on sprint when you want to really have fun.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's still a launch mode in this one then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who
Great,
doesn't need
yeah.
that little extra smile?
Well, if you have 6 of your friends in the car, you got to show them what electric can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, before I forget, because you spoke about our vehicle-to-vehicle charger,
Yes.
right? That's essentially a vehicle-to-load operation.
Yes.
Gravity comes with 3 outlets that are vehicle-to-load, and we've got 1.8 kilowatts on every single one of them.
Oh,
So you
really?
can have, for instance, in the front, you've got an electric barbecue. You don't have to put on a fire, which is dangerous in California.
Yeah,
So you've
yeah.
got an electric barbecue. In the trunk, you've got an electric cooler box, or maybe a kegerator that's
Yeah.
cooling your keg.
There we go.
And then you can have a hair dryer, a hair blow dryer after you come out of the bay.
And
right?
you can do that all at the same time.
You can do all of it at the same time. It's really a vehicle to load maximizer in 3 locations,
Yeah.
greatly accessible. That's another up that we put into it for its off-roading or the experience in outdoorsiness.
Well, my one request for a vehicle to load function would be, rather than a vehicle to, J-plug on the other side, if you can give us a vehicle to NEMA 1450. That way you can just plug whatever you want in, a welder or whatever. Which
yeah.
I'm not sure many people are going to weld with this. But a 1450 outlet's pretty the standard. A
Yeah,
lot of
it
people
is.
have
It
that.
is. Yeah,
That'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll think about it. But
Okay.
it's 1.8 kilowatts is not quite where you'd go there.
No,
right?
of course.
It's
Yeah, we need some more.
9.6,
Yeah.
with a 40
Yeah,
amp.
40 amp continuous.
We couldn't do that.
Yeah.
That we can do actually with our vehicle-to-vehicle charger. That is a 9.6 kilowatt reverse
Output,
power flow.
yeah.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
And you know that the Wunderbox can do 19.2 kilowatts
On the intake.
and also outbound.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which we've spoken about it, and I did a virtual prototype several years ago at our headquarters, talking about vehicle to home or vehicle to business, where you can have a fleet of Lucid Airs and Gravities plugged into a business. And during daytime, when the solar array on your business shines and creates power, you charge your employees, most valuable employees, cars.
The ones that park up
And
front.
then when
yes.
the sun goes down, right, then you can draw a little bit of that power back, and you can actually balance your peak loads.
Yeah, so your demand charge
You
doesn't
can
go
do
crazy.
demand shifting and peak shaving, and therefore, number one, offset the power demand on your building. That costs, I think it was $36 per kilowatt.
Yes, for every kilowatt of load.
Every
yes.
kilowatt
And it
times
changes every
19
region.
times how many cars. So it's a huge amount that you could potentially cut the peaks. And then, yeah, also you don't need the peaker plants anymore in the future if many people adopt it.
Yeah.
And the vehicle to home or vehicle to business is actually an active project.
Oh,
Emad,
okay.
Emad and team working hard on it because it's one of my passion projects. It's really a tech feature that will show every EV owner how superior their product is relative to an ICE engine car.
Yeah.
Because just imagine you plug in your second Lucid Air at home during daytime, and you take it for trips, sure, but you plug it in whilst you're at home, and then you feed it from your solar array, and then in the evening you pull the power out. You don't need a stationary battery storage device anymore.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And you've got 9 power walls
Absolutely.
inside one car.
So much more that you've already paid
Included
for.
in the price
Yeah,
of the car.
exactly. It's
right?
already
So
included,
How
yeah.
much does one of those power walls or battery systems cost?
Yeah.
How many do you want to put on the side of your house?
Yeah.
And here you get 9
Yeah.
included.
You just get a tiny one for when the car's gone, and then you bring the
Exactly.
car back and use this as the main source.
Exactly. So that is one of the close to heart projects.
I'm with you on
for
this. This
a
is
much
exciting.
better energy future.
I love it. Well, congratulations on making it this far with this project, of course.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thanks a lot.
cannot wait to experience it and ride in it and drive it and do all the testing, of course, because you guys really do fantastic work. And I'll be having the 2025 soon, so stay tuned because I'll be driving the new Airs coming up in some new videos. And thank you, Eric, for joining. It's always a pleasure to have
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Yeah, this was great. See you
Thank
soon.
you. Thanks.
Well,
See you.
guys, there you go. How cool are those two guys? I mean, there's so many people involved in Lucid. I've been able to get to know the team from covering the Air from the very early days of the company. But to me, this is the real make or break. Now, those are my words. I really think the Air captured the heart and minds of a lot of car enthusiasts. Yes, even here at Pebble Beach, you see them all over the place from a luxurious standpoint, but also from a technological nerd standpoint. I love the efficiency. I love the motor tech, the battery tech, and I love to see it evolving. And I think this is going to be the biggest step change in Lucid that we've witnessed so far. So I cannot wait to drive it, cover it, do all the things, but at least I hope this gives you a little bit more insight. And it certainly gave me a lot more insight into the Lucid Gravity project. I can't thank you guys enough for watching and joining me here in California. We'll see you on another one again soon. Bye-bye.